What's the wildest wrong number call that you've ever received? I got a call and I didn't recognize the number, so I ignored it 3 or 4 times until I eventually gave in. I picked up the phone, and before I could say anything, a guy with a Brooklyn accent starts talking in panic, and he said, "Hey yo, that guy we saw was one of Polish Tom's boys. If he shows up, don't say crap about last night." And I said, "Sorry, this must be the wrong number." He just started cursing and hung up. Ever since then, I've been curious as to who the heck this Polish Tom is. I used to get calls for Phoebe right after I got my new number. A lot of calls. I was always nice and let them know that they had the wrong number. This went on for 2 years. Near the end, I got a call from an unknown number. It was Phoebe. She said she wanted to apologize and thanked me for being kind. And she thinks she told everyone the new number, but if anyone calls, could I give it to them? I said, sure, no problem. I still occasionally get calls. I politely inform them of the new number. One guy was surprised and started texting me about the whole situation. We became friends only over text, and we still text occasionally to this day. A guy called from prison. After I told him wrong number, he said he had nobody to talk to and he had just dialed a random number. I was young and naive, but the guy never asked for anything. We talked for a while, him telling me how he got to be in jail. Straight up street thug, but he was trying to make good and get back to society in good shape. Never talked again. I hope he made it out okay. I was repeatedly getting an international number, and when I picked up, the only thing that it said was, "Hello?" And then it doesn't hang up, and it's very clearly a recording of the hello and then just faint static. Super creepy. Also, one time I had a wrong number call from the area code I lived in, and when I told the guy that I wasn't Greg, he didn't seem to mind and asked me if I party. I said no, so he reiterated and asked if I did substances. I think it was a substance dealer cold call. Got a voicemail on the house phone a few years ago. It was from an older sounding guy with what sounded like the worst case of laryngitis I've ever heard. All he said was, "Linda, call me on this number. It's in your interest." I have no idea who Linda is or why she should call, but everyone in the family assumes she's dead by now. Rip Linda. Listeners, if you know a Linda, check she's alright and whether she has answered any cryptic calls from men who sound like they're dying. When I picked up, someone immediately went off in a frantic worry about his dog who'd run away, now gone for a week. When he continued how he'd looked everywhere, I stopped him to mention he had the wrong number. But out of kindness, we talked a little bit. Losing a pet is horrible. I know that, and I got to know the part of town where the dog was missing, many miles away, and he mentioned some details about his dog. Well, I'll be damned, when I go to the market later that day, I see a dog begging that meets the description. Now, in my mind, this is utterly impossible. Period. Nevertheless, I look up the recent call in my phone history and I FaceTime the guy. It's his dog. They were reunited 2 hours later. He had initially thought he was calling the local website for when your pet has gone missing. He had already notified them and provided a picture. Because he was getting desperate, he thought he had called the mobile of the volunteer to have the information added that the dog was usually wearing a scarf with the bright neon colors of a local band. The dog wasn't wearing that in the picture, so he tells me this, and it's actually how I recognized the dog. I once got called because a substance dealer had been shot by the cops, and they were calling the numbers on his phone to help identify him. I asked them who died, but they said they got the number wrong when they called me, so they apologized and hung up. I work at an old folks' home and was in the elevator one day, and the emergency phone started ringing. I pushed the button to answer it, and it was some guy looking for a chiropractor's office. He was super confused when I told him he had called an elevator in an assisted living community. I was confused because who knew you could call an elevator from an outside line? Back in the olden days, a coworker of mine got sick while visiting his parents for the weekend. This was when long-distance calls cost money, so his mother offered to call his boss on Monday morning using her office phone. A man answered and she told him that Billy wouldn't be able to come into work that day. The man sounded rather surprised, but politely said that he'd transfer her to his secretary. The secretary enlightened Mum that she had called the private number of the governor of the state, and he had personally answered. Some weird guy handling affairs at some California courthouse screaming at me saying I was supposed to show up to court. The man left like 12 mails once and I had no clue, each one escalating in anger. Really weird guy. Needs to chill out at his job. I got one of those calls on the voicemail at my job once. the court or the lawyer calling and saying that the person was going to get arrested if they didn't show up. I felt like being a decent person, so I called them back and was like, don't arrest them, they clearly didn't get the message. Well, mine was a text message. The guy was off by one digit and was texting saying that he had given me a down-under kiss at an Albertsons, which is a West Coast grocery store chain, in the parking lot for painkillers. No, I did not take the down-under kiss, because I know you people are thinking that. I didn't have any painkillers to give him. My best friend's older sister saved a voicemail for years until she got a new phone. This little boy, who sounded maybe 5 or 6, was apparently calling his girlfriend to break up with her and said he was mad at her and he was going to call her the J word and the R word and the M word. He went through a solid 75% of the alphabet and then ended with, "Okay, I'll see you tomorrow at school. Bye. Love you. Bye." It was fantastic. I noticed I missed a call from an unknown number, and the area code was for a town out of state that my daughter happened to be attending an EDM music festival at. Of course, the mum in me panicked and called it back, but I got the answering message. I left a message saying what my first name was and that I had a daughter currently in that town, and if the call was from or about her, I could be reached at, and I gave them my number, please call me back, etc. About an hour later, I got a call back from a sweet older lady with a thick southern accent telling me, "Sugar, I couldn't let you worry, sweetie. I dialed the wrong number, and I noticed right away and I hung up. But you must have seen it, and here I made you worry for nothing. Your girl's all right. My grandson's a paramedic, and he says ain't no one died up there yet. And only 2 boys got dehydrated so far and passed out. I bet she's having a fun time." We talked for half an hour. Shout out to you, Clara. A few months ago, I got a call from a convenience store in town and they asked for me by last name. I have a super uncommon last name, so I know it was for me. Right after I said it was me, they hung up. I called them back and they said they must have called the wrong number. They literally asked for me by name. After overanalyzing it for a few hours, I thought it was some kind of scam. It's been a few months though, and no sign of anything weird on any accounts or anything as of yet. Someone called my number asking for Gary. I'm not Gary, and that isn't even close to my name. I politely said, "Sorry, you have the wrong number." They stated back that no they didn't, and I was a C-word and they were going to kill me. It was at this point that I decided, screw this guy. So I said back some things like, "Come over and do it, and I'll mess you up so bad you'll be peeing blood," or something like that, and this guy got more angry and said some other crap. Then I just went again, "No, seriously dude, you have the wrong number," and I hung up. Not a call, but I thought it would be worth sharing. I got a text from a wrong number once about 10 years ago, and it said, "Hey girl, you still dance? I need to make some money quick." This is funny enough by itself, but particularly amusing because I'm a man, and freaking hilarious because I also happen to be paraplegic. The narrator would like to note that our commenter didn't write whether or not they accepted the offer. So I choose to believe that a hard-up adult club owner awaited his star dancer and was somewhat baffled when a burly gentleman in undies and a wheelchair rolled out onto the stage and started rotating to the music. Well, I didn't answer mine, but I listened to a voicemail from a number I didn't recognize. It was a guy claiming he knew where I lived and he thinks I'm very beautiful and would love to take me out sometime. He ended the message with, "If you don't respond, I'll kill your dog." I was kind of freaked out, so I texted, "Sorry, you have the wrong number." I knew because I didn't have a dog. He responded with an apology and said it was just a joke he was playing on his girlfriend at the time. I really hope that this was true and they just liked to play creepy jokes on each other. I got this call at my work. I answered, "Name of my company, this is Tom. How can I help you?" There was a man who sounded like he was in a lot of pain on the other end. "Jimmy, this is your cousin Al." I'm sorry, sir, this is Tom, and there's no Jimmy here." "Jimmy, it's your cousin, Al." I'm sorry, there's no Jimmy here." Jimmy, it's your cousin Al. I'm alive." "Sir, is everything okay?"
"Who is this?"
"Al, this is Tom. You called my business. But real quick, are you okay?"
Oh, sorry, I was hit by a truck."
"What, you mean like in the last 10 minutes?"
No, cousin, like 2 weeks ago. I was out with cousin Jimmy and I got hit by a truck walking home. When I came to, cousin Jimmy was gone and I had to call 911.
Jesus Christ, Al, I'm glad you're okay.
Oh, Tom, don't take Jesus' name in vain like that. He kept me alive when that truck hit me. Oh, my apologies, Al. I'm just glad you're okay. Oh, it's okay, Tom. I just wanted to call Cousin Jimmy to let him know I'm okay. I'm sorry, Al. What's this Al business? We're cousins. I'm sorry, Cousin Al, but Cousin Jimmy sounds like a piece of crap. Yeah, he kind of is. Well, I have to get going. Mighty good of you to talk to me. No problem, Cousin Al. I wish you a speedy recovery. That's mighty kind of you. You take care now. He hung up after that. He hasn't called back, but I think about my new family member every day. You can submit your own stories to be featured here on the channel. The story submission link is in the description below. And if you want to listen to some vibey music in the background, check out Easy Mode, also linked below, and subscribe. When I went to school in Chico, California, I lived in a dorm with a payphone in the common room. One night, 4 or 5 of us were sitting around watching TV, and one guy, we'll call him Marvin, was expecting a call from his brother. We'll call him Floyd, who's in school in Nevada. The phone rang and Marvin answers, "Hey Floyd, how you doing?" The answer was, "I'm great. Let me talk to Marvin." "Hahaha, this is Marvin. Now let me talk to Floyd." "Dude, I am Floyd. Put my brother Marvin on now, okay?" "Wait, is this Floyd in Nevada?" "Nah, man, this is Floyd in Utah." Eventually, they worked out that the 2 Floyds were trying to call their 2 brothers Marvin on the same night. They worked out that the phone number Floyd called was 1 digit off, and all 4 were in college. There was much amazement and a little hilarity when Marvin finally hung up and told us what had happened. I once got an international American phone call, and as I neither recognized the number nor could I quickly pull up an ID on it, I picked it up and this guy instantly started blathering on in Russian with a thick Russian accent and with a speed that I assumed that only a native speaker could talk at. After a few minutes, I managed to get his attention and go, "Oi, who's this?" And there was this awkward silence, and then suddenly the speaker switches to this American, Texanish accent with impeccable English and profusely apologizes before hanging up. This was a while ago, and I've switched phones and since lost the call history, but now and again I wonder just what did I intercept. I made one wrong number call that stayed with me. My elderly mum passed away, and the nursing home rang me in the early hours of the morning, about 3 a.m. to let me know. It wasn't unexpected, but it was still a shock when it happened. So I tried to ring my brother to let him know, and I must have dialed the wrong number. A young man answered, and I'd obviously woken him from a deep sleep. I realized immediately that he wasn't my brother and apologized. He asked who I was, and I said, "I was trying to ring my brother as our mum has passed away," and he said, "Oh, I'm sorry for your loss. I know that probably doesn't seem like a big deal, but I just thought what a nice young man he must be to remember his manners and offer sympathy even when woken from a deep sleep by a random wrong number." It stayed with me. A lady called me one day and said, "Hello, it's your mother," the same way my mum always says it. So we chatted for 10 minutes, and for once she seems to be really listening to me, acknowledging what I'm saying, very sympathetic and concerned in her short replies. So I start to spill my guts about how it's been so hard for me lately, and I'm really just keeping it together for the kids. But all I really want to do is run away or die trying. The concern pours out of her, telling me that I should go see a therapist she knows, and how I've been stronger than this in the past, and she's spot on about everything. Then she says, "Have you told Terry?" Terry who?" I reply. "Your wife, Terry, my daughter." "I'm not married to Terry, I'm talking about Tara." Is this Bob?" "No, this is Paul." "Oh, honey, I'm so sorry. I have the wrong number, but you hang in there and it will all work out. Goodbye." And she hung up. I would really like my mum to actually listen like that woman did one day. Several years ago, I got a text message from an unfamiliar number that said something like, "This one's good too," and included a JPEG of Hello Kitty in a clan robe standing in front of a burning cross. Somehow, someone down in the States, I'm Canadian, had wired up a buzzer at an apartment wrong, such that when someone tried to buzz in, our home phone would ring. For weeks, late at night, drunk people would call asking to get into the apartment. We weren't sure what to make of it. Finally, a sober guy tried to buzz in and we were able to figure it out. Better still, we found out we were able to buzz people into this random apartment by pressing 9 on our end. The problem sorted itself out pretty quickly after we just started hitting 9 every time the phone rang. I mean, there's a non-zero chance that you let a home invader into your apartment block, but you do you.
Honestly, if people were waking me up at all hours of the night to be let in, I'd probably get pretty blasé about other people's safety as well. I picked up the phone and heard in Chilean Spanish, "Hello, good afternoon. Could you please contact me with Mr. and gave a name? Please tell him I'm also still interested in the baby goats he offered me the other day." I said in broken Spanish, wrong number? Oh shit, and he hung up. I used to get calls in my college dorm room from people speaking what I think was Korean, maybe Vietnamese, I'm not sure. They were clearly trying to contact a student there, maybe the person who had my room before, and the family still had the phone number, but they sounded very distressed and were asking for somebody's name. But they didn't speak any English at all, and I couldn't talk to them either, so I couldn't even help a little bit. The calls eventually stopped after a couple of weeks. I hope they got in contact with whoever they were trying to reach. Back in the days of dial-up, when I was about 16, I was secretly surfing on naughty adult websites in the computer room while the rest of the family was in the living room watching television. Suddenly, my connection was gone and immediately the phone starts ringing. Since one of the phones, the landline, was close to the computer, I pick up. A voice with a foreign accent says, "You called the wrong number," even if I didn't call anyone. Nonplussed, I reconnected to the internet. 15 minutes later, the cops appeared at our doorstep in full body armor with flashlights, telling my shocked mum that they received an emergency call from our house and wanted to check if there was a domestic disturbance. To this day, I have no explanation for what happened. I had my old phone number for more than a decade, so I was getting robocalls galore. When my boyfriend and I decided to take the plunge and get a phone plan together, I was thrilled to get a new phone number. What I didn't realize is that some idiot named Tony had had my number before me. He had either died or was too lazy to tell everyone that he'd changed his number. I'm guessing the latter. It's been over 6 months, and I still get work-related and personal calls and texts for this Tony idiot. I used to call them back and leave voicemails explaining that this was no longer Tony's number, and they needed to tell him to tell people that he had changed his number. One person texted me and demanded, "Who is this?" I guess they thought I stole his phone or something. Frick you, Tony. Let me enjoy my new number in peace. So this old lady had her phone on divert to my number. The phone company couldn't do anything about it because she had had it diverted to my number on her phone, and I can only assume it was one digit out. First, a family member was in the hospital dying and had been brought in by an ambulance and wasn't long for this world, so other family members called and left a message that they saw her car in the car park and to come to this area as the person might not live long, and because it went to me, she didn't get the message. Second, her friends had a fantastic ski trip and went into details of where they went and what they did, and with whom, and they wanted to catch up with her soon. She didn't get that message either. Third, the hospital rang to say that she had an appointment in a department on a given date of the week. Luckily, they left their number, so I rang back and explained the situation and admonished them for leaving personal details on a random message minder. 4, some kids singing happy birthday to her. 5, a completely unintelligible accented message to the lady about a get-together. I understood maybe 1 word out of 5. 6, noticed that a Pilates class was postponed or the location changed. I can't quite remember. 7, finally a nephew who left his number for a callback, so I did and explained the whole list of messages and how the phone company couldn't help and could he please change the diversion on her phone. He must have, because I didn't get any more, although I systematically blocked all numbers that called for her. After moving provinces and changing my cell number, for the next 3 years I received calls from collection agents looking for a Jason Williams. At least once a month I received a call. After the first year, I began telling them that this was no longer his number and I've recorded the name of their business and any further contact will result in harassment charges. 39 different collection agencies called looking for him since I started taking notes. 39. I still to this day have no idea who Jason is or what the frick he was doing, but I haven't received a call for him for 2 years now. This was in the 90s, long before cell phones were common. At college, my brother and I were both students, roommates at an off-campus apartment. I was graduating, waiting in the lobby of the University Job Placement Center for an appointment with a counselor. There was a landline phone on my desk, normally used by students to call job reps. It wasn't really meant to get incoming calls. And then it rang. I looked up at the receptionist, who motioned for me to answer it, as I was the only other person present and was within arm's reach of it. It was my brother's major professor trying to get a hold of him. I told him where my brother was, he was out running errands, and suggested when he could call the apartment to get a hold of him. He thanked me. I asked him how he knew to call the job center. He hadn't. He had meant to call the apartment, and when I'd picked up, he'd assumed that that was what he had done. He didn't know he had misdialed until I told him, and I had to hand the phone to the receptionist before he believed me. So, calling the correct number wouldn't have worked, nobody was home. My brother wasn't reachable by phone at the time. I was the only person near a phone who knew his schedule. His professor dialed a wrong number and accidentally got a phone that I happened to be standing next to. Not really strange, but annoying. I used to get calls from some guy, usually around 2 to 3 a.m., looking for someone named Dave. I'd usually be asleep when he called, but he always left a voicemail for Dave, just your typical, "Hey, it's Jeff, call me back," kind of thing. This went on for weeks. I never called them back. I thought they'd get the hint or at least see this Dave guy in person by that point and figure out their mistake, but no. One afternoon, I got another voicemail looking for Dave, so I called him back. The guy picked up and I explained the number he had just called and left a voicemail to was mine and he's been calling the wrong number for a month. He completely denied calling me and said he hadn't called anyone that day and he's never called my number. At this point, I was annoyed. I know it's him. I've been listening to his voicemails for weeks. I basically just said, "I know it's you, stop calling me." And he acted like I was crazy. He did stop calling after that though. When you subscribe, make sure to hit the bell to turn on notifications. Put the playlist on in the background to finish listening to all the stories, or if you want some vibey music to put on in the background, check out Easy Mode. If you like Am I the Genius, give Am I the Jerk a shot. Everything linked in the description.